This week's topic that I'm going to be teaching is biohacking addiction cravings. Just to let you know who I am, so my name's Ashley Bloxham. I'm an addictions therapist, but I also specialise in trauma and childhood. I've also overcame addiction. I think that is the most important thing to qualify as, but I've also studied it right up to PhD level. I've also had the very sad experience of dealing with people who struggle with addiction as well. So I've got a full 360 view of it, and I'm here just to teach you everything that I know. So today's session is all about biohacking cravings. So to learn how to biohack cravings, what we need to know is what's happening when our bodies are going into fight or flight response. And the reason why is because it's exactly the same process when we're having a craving, when we've got a trigger. So what's interesting about when we have a fight or flight response is there's two alarm bells in our body. So I'm going to try and explain it in a really simple way. So we have two alarm bells, one in our brains and one in our bodies. And what they do is they produce a chemical. So the one in our body is from our adrenal glands, and that's adrenaline. We've all heard about adrenaline. So adrenaline makes our breathing go faster. It pumps loads of oxygen and blood to our muscles, so they're tenser, and it just makes us ready to go so we can fight or flight. And in our brains, so that's the first alarm bell, adrenaline. In our brains, we have another alarm bell which goes off, which is noradrenaline, and that makes our thoughts go faster, and that gets us ready to think fast. First alarm bell, second alarm bell in body to act fast. So why are we talking about this? I'm just going to say hi to Guy first. Hi, how are you doing? So why are we talking about these alarm bells and how does it relate to addiction cravings? So when one of these alarm bells goes off, it instantly signals for the other alarm bell to go off. And it can happen either the body's alarm bell, which is your adrenaline, or your brain's alarm bell, which is your noradrenaline. So one can go off first. It doesn't matter which way. I'll give you an example. So our body's alarm bell might go off if we smell something, a familiar smell, if we hear a bang, if we see like a car crash or something in front of us. So that sets off our body's alarm bell. Our brain's alarm bell can be set off first through doom scrolling, or maybe we meet a person and we're used to getting wrecked with them. So one goes off, sets the other off. Now, what is cool about this is if we understand that we've got two internal alarm bells that set each other off, we also can realise that we can inhibit one of those alarm bells and it will instantly quieten the other one. And then what we can do is stop both of them. So in our bodies, we can stop the adrenaline through relaxing our posture, dropping our jawline, deep breaths where we're breathing out longer than what we're breathing in, because that alarm bell sets off shallow breaths so we can run, so we can calm our body down. With our brain, we can just start to use metacognition where we start to go, whoa, hang on a minute. We're setting off stress here. We don't need to be thinking about this. Let's just chill out and think of it from a rational perspective, and that will inhibit the brain's alarm bell. So what we can do when we're feeling a craving is we can try and think, right, we've got two alarm bells going off and I need to stop them both. So let's work on whichever feels easiest. Maybe you're better at talking yourself into a state of calm. Maybe you go for the biofeedback in the body where you just relax yourself and just work on the first one and then go in with the second one that's a little bit harder for you, and just keep dampening both alarm bells, and you will feel yourself relax, and then you can deal with the craving through your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for impulse control and rational thinking. Right, I'm going to see what people are saying. I'll keep going back to adrenaline and noradrenaline, your two alarm bells throughout to remind you. So, hi Psychedelic, how you doing? How is things going on your end? Nice to see you again. ZY, where am I from? I'm from Newcastle. Just to let anyone know who's watching, I'm an addictions therapist, but I also specialise in childhood and trauma. So if you've got any mental health questions or any addiction questions, because they're two sides of the same coin, just drop us a comment and I'll try and get through them. If not, my wonderful mods will pick up on them. Guy, anyone who wants support from Ashley, comment on her video and she'll contact you back. Yes, I'm just going to pin that. That is exactly right. Thank you. Toon Army. Yes, I am from the Toon Army. Definitely. Toon Army, by the way, is a reference to Newcastle United, which is our football club. They're the Magpies. I used to be in the Magpie Club when I was younger. I used to have season tickets. Anyone football fans? Yeah, so I'm waiting for some comments to come in, so I'm going to go back to what I was talking about in the beginning. So if we think about these two alarm bells which go off, fight or flight, we've got adrenaline in the body, noradrenaline in the brain, and we need to hit the brakes on both of them. So if we think about anxiety, which is what happens when we have a craving, we're getting anxious that we need the thing. What we need to remember is that with anxiety is it escalates. So if we think of this like your anxiety, and if we start here, this is baseline. This is where you should be, relaxed, or rest and digest, it's called. So if we're relaxed, if we're having an anxiety spike, we might go up to here, we calm, and then we come back down. And if you think about when we're here, our body's brakes are on. And when we rise up to here, our body's accelerating, ready to respond to the perceived threat, fight or flight. And then when we realize actually we don't have a threat, it comes back down. Now, what happens if we're constantly in a state of fight or flight is our baseline isn't down here, it's here. And then when we get triggered, we're going, woo, up here. And this is where we have panic attacks. This is what cravings feel like, where they're all consuming. So the thing that I've said about hitting our body's brakes and our mind's brakes is don't just practice it when we're feeling anxiety or when we are in the middle of a craving. That's like learning to swim in a hurricane. It's going to be hard. Make the rafter first. So practice learning how to hit your brakes when you're feeling okay, not when you're stressed. So that looks like repeatedly through the day, learning to relax your body, learning to question your thoughts that's going on in your mind instead of running with them. And repeat this daily and you'll start to strengthen your ability to hit your brakes, which means your baseline will go back down to here where it's supposed to be, a healthy fight or flight response. So if you are struggling in addiction or anxiety, you have a really sensitive fight or flight response, what that means is you don't need to necessarily stop the addiction today, but what you can do is learn to practice hitting your brakes as much as possible so it becomes second nature, which means when you come to stop your addiction or when you're feeling really anxious or triggered, you're already really good at hitting your brakes. Okay? Right. Let's see some questions. So I've got Local Boy. Hi, I don't think I've seen you before. If I have, I've not... Your name's not went into my subconscious yet, but nice to see you. So what example to gaslighting and how to overcome it? What a good question. I've been gaslit many a times, we all have. And to answer the first half. So when somebody gaslights you, this is usually a defense mechanism. So if we look at it even at extremes, people with narcissism, and let's be real, people with actual narcissism only dominate a very small population of people. We can have narcissistic tendencies. But if we look at gaslighting with people in the more extreme cases, it's still people who have narcissism have a very fragile sense of self. So think of it like a very scared child who's developed this narcissistic personality disorder because they're feeling really insecure and they have a genetic component. So if we gaslight, it comes from deep insecurity. It's a defense mechanism. So first of all, we can give that person grace and say they're gaslighting us because something inside of them feels really insecure and they don't just want to own whatever's going on. So instead, they're going to gaslight you. They're trying to manipulate you because they have an innate feeling that they need to be in control. So first of all, have grace. Think it's not their fault, but it's not cool. You can have a reason for something. So grace gives a reason doesn't excuse the behaviour. So first of all, give them grace, and that'll allow you to just enter the situation from a regulated space. Second of all, recognise that this is a clear conduct of my boundaries, the overstepping boundaries. So what does a boundary need? A boundary needs action, and an action is usually distance and space, time away. So if we look at it from that perspective, if somebody's gaslighting us, we're going to take distance from it. We're not going to engage. People who are gaslighting you are hell-bent on zero accountability and flipping the script onto you to make you feel like you've done something wrong. Now, if we can ground ourselves and say, this is about them, they're not in a cool headspace, it's not about me, but equally, I'm not entertaining it, what we can do is we can calmly not engage. And the best thing you can do with gaslighting is say, I think we're remembering things differently here. And just calmly. And if they start to do it again, say, look, I don't want to get into this any further because I think we're remembering things very differently. And just disengage and watch them. Somebody who's gaslighting will freak the fuck out if you do that. But to get to a space where we can calmly say that, we need to just give them grace and respect our own boundaries. So I hope that was helpful. Psychedelic. I'm fine. I'm cooking. I don't have money. I'm waiting and this is hard. 4 weeks without money. Oh my God, financial stress is the worst, especially in addiction recovery. I had a similar thing with money, and again, I tell you what, I did psychedelic. I don't know if it's helpful to you because I know psychedelic is just, I feel like we're on the same wavelength. He understands the drill. But just in case it's helpful, when I was going through a stage where basically I had 47 quid to live on when I moved house to be closer to a support network, when I just came out of being sectioned, I just was lowering my anxiety and thinking, this is a future Ashley problem, and doing the techniques I said in the beginning. But oh my God, there's nothing worse than financial stress. I'm glad you're leaning into cooking though. So it sounds like you're already leaning into self-care. I'm all right though, yeah. I've just came out of a hypomanic episode, so I'm in a bit of a crash. I did manage to keep myself from going into psychosis though, which was good. Right, Tomu, you are the best live chat out there. I love that, thank you. That is a very nice compliment. Massive inflated ego off that. Kath Sharp, Sink or Swim. That's so weird. I've had the Mackenzie Mackay Sink or Swim song in my head, like the lyrics all morning. I'll always swim. I'm scrappy. If you can overcome addiction, guys, if you can go through getting sectioned and still come out smiling, you are a swimmer. Anybody who's coursing through addiction and who gets out the other side is 100% a swimmer. No room for sinking. Chris, how are you doing? Anxiety is formed by craving that which we don't have and absolutely be turned into thankfulness for what we do have and are passionate about, shaping our minds and teaching ourselves contentment. Love that. Contentment, sorry. I love that. And, you know, if we think about what Chris has just said there, so if we're having anxiety, he spoke about using it as an opportunity to think about gratitude. So that's what's called metacognition. It's putting the prefrontal cortex online. So if we have anxiety, it's the limbic system in our brains. If we stop and start to be intentional with our thoughts, instantly we're using our prefrontal cortex, which is rational thinking, impulse control, because you're switching gears. And if we start to think about gratitude, that's a complete different brain circuit we're activating. So that's such a good tip. So if we can just breathe and then flip the script, I know it sounds a bit woo-woo, but actually what we're doing is we're hijacking our brains and saying, not going to have the alarm bells going off. Instead, we're going to practice gratitude, and then we'll be able to tackle the craving from a calm state of mind. See what else people are saying. Foxy, shout out to County Durham. Hi, how you doing, Foxy? I can't remember where you're from. Our best county in the country. Are you from Durham? I think think you are. That sounds like you are. I'm pretty sure you've told us that before as well. Only method to deal with a narcissist is to leave and go your way. Yeah, I definitely 100% agree with that. But there's a lot of people who gaslight. So look, I was going to say there's a lot of people who gaslight who aren't narcissists, because actual narcissists is only a small portion of the population. I think it's like 1% or something. I don't know. Does anybody know the true statistic? But we all have toxic traits. I've realized quite a few of my own along my own self-aware journey and my healing journey, and it ramped up when I became sober. I was like, oh my God, I actually got loads of crap, horrible toxic traits. So we all have toxic traits, and sometimes by putting in a boundary, we're actually holding up a mirror to someone to self-reflect on their own toxic trait, and then giving them an opportunity to see how they're going to behave. So by turning around and saying like, well, I remember things differently, you're holding up a mirror to saying, look, I'm not engaging with this behaviour. And the way I do things, and I'm not telling people to do this, but so narcissists, absolutely leave them. Somebody who's human, got some unsavory traits, if we care about the person, what I do is I have a 2-tier rule. So I'll give somebody one chance. So I'll name something, one chance, and I'll see how they behave. Now that chance is for them. I'm like putting in a boundary, and I'm going to see how they behave and react to that boundary. It's giving them an opportunity just to hold the mirror up and see if they want to look in it. The second chance I'll give somebody is for me, because I don't give a third chance. And the second chance is, so, okay, I'm going to give them another opportunity, because no one's perfect. But I know fine well, and I'm not going to tell you, if you fail this next chance, then that means that you don't care about listening, you're refusing to look in the mirror, and then I'm just going to walk. So people get 2 chances with me. Narcissist 0. And that second chance means that when I do walk, if I start second guessing myself, because leaving a relationship, whether it's friendship or whether it's romantic, is a really difficult thing to do. But you have to protect your peace at all times. But when you leave and it's difficult, it's good to be able to sit there when you're questioning yourself to say, hang on a minute, I gave them 2 chances and they weren't interested in respecting me boundaries. So that is what I hold on to when I'm being solid in my boundary and not going back to it. Yeah, no third chances. First chance for them, second for me. Right. Ashley, fuck you, no. I don't know, no fuck. I don't, what you fucking is for? I don't know what's going on. Give us a bit of context, Ashley. Right, Kath, every action has a reaction. It does. It does. I think as well, it's about giving people grace and giving yourself grace with these actions. Like, because every action does have a reaction, but also being boundaried. We have to be boundaried with ourselves and others. It's about compassionate accountability, I would say. Local boy, thanks for your great answer. Oh, I'm glad it resonated with you. 1, can you speak to us more about what sectioning is? Yeah, so I got sectioned on... Sectioned is where you're detained in a mental hospital by law. So I was having a psychotic episode. I've got bipolar. There's other people on here who's come on and spoke about having schizophrenia. So psychosis isn't limited to bipolar. There's a few different disorders. But I had psychosis. You could even have, actually, guys, drug-induced psychosis, just since it's an addiction channel. I had drug-induced psychosis when I stopped addiction the first time. But yeah, so basically I was completely on planet bonkers, walking around naked, thought it was a suicide, I tried to commit suicide to save my dogs and my kids, crazy, absolutely crazy. And basically I got sectioned, Again, so it's by law, I was detained to a mental hospital. So yeah, that is that. B-bomb. How did you keep yourself from going into psychosis? Like what technique? Yeah, so I've been practicing this for a long time. How to manage hypomania. So if anybody doesn't know about bipolar, I'll give you a quick explanation. If you think of, I'll get your little pen out again. If you think of like normal mood being here, we all go between, so we've got normal, this is just peaceful. We've got severe depression, and we've got mania. Now, mania is where psychosis sits in. We're just manic, psychotic. That's mania. And we've got depression, which is suicidal, can't get up, can't eat. You do get mixed episodes. But what happens is everybody kind of swings between low mood, which is here, and slightly elevated mood. Now, with bipolar, you have two states before mania and before depression, which is low mood and then hypomania. Now, what happens is hypomania is, it's like a sliding scale. So if you start to feel depressed, it can slide all the way down to depression, suicidal. If you start to feel hypomania, it can slide all the way up into psychosis and mania. Now, what I've been learning to do for the last 2 years is to keep myself within this healthier space. And what I do, so when I'm being depressed, like low mood, I dial my life down. I just do the basics. I'm super kind to myself. I do really nice, lovely things for myself, and my friends just containers and do lush things and offer to take load offers. When I'm doing hypomania, which is like you start to feel full of energy. For instance, guys, I've written a full paper on veterans in 1 day. That might take months for a normal person. I've finished my first draft of my manuscript for my book. Might take like years for a person. So you feel elevated, you're full of life. But what I have to do is keep hitting the brakes. So what I said in the beginning of this is learning to control anxiety. Now, when you have hypomania, it's the same alarm bells going off on your body as if you have anxiety, only there's no fear. So it's adrenaline, noradrenaline. So what I've been learning for years is just to calm my anxiety. And through my hypomania, I've just been slowing my speech down. Biofeedback loop, that's been slowing my brain down. I've been breathing, I've been grounding myself, doing mindfulness. And this is all things that you can do for cravings, for anxiety and hypomania. And guys, the more you practice something, the stronger the neural pathways become in your brain. So this hypomanic episode, I've been doing it unconsciously. And you can fight your fight or flight and cravings unconsciously if you practice day in, day out. Right, I'm going to scroll around. We've got quite a few comments, so I'm just going to... Actually, I don't have too many today, so I'll go through and just answer the questions in order. So Krista said, I'm stuck living with my parents at 53, my childhood abusers and narcissists. That sounds really tough. Chris, have you got any support in this? Because this sounds like something that I don't want to open up a can of worms on a live. But if you're wanting some one-to-one, just comment on any of my content, like the message I've pinned that Guy said, and we can have a little chat about how to get you a little kind of game plan to help support you through this if you want it and get you in the right place. But yeah, I think one of the best things we can do in a situation like this, in any situation that's affecting our lives, is start to work out how can I love myself and protect myself, which I know self-love sounds very woo-woo, but it's not. It is the key to resolving any situation. Right, local boy, how would you explain the tremendous rise in ADHD? cases and mental health illness all over. Are we in a mental pandemic? Yeah. So I've studied this. So I haven't studied it it was just a part of my PhD. So the thing what research is saying is that there's a lot of different takes on it. Obviously, evidence and research is all contradicting. What we do know is there's been I think it's 700 and something % rise in autism. I can't remember the statistics with ADHD, but the diagnosis is 100% went off the Richter scale. Now, the thing is, I think there's a case of it wasn't diagnosed. So, for instance, I've been diagnosed in my mid-30s. Now, to have an ADHD diagnosis, you have to have presented as ADHD as a child. You can't have started showing symptoms when you were older. So a big part of my diagnosis was looking at whether I was ADHD as a child. I was. So what does that show us? That shows us that it's not that ADHD wasn't present, it's that it was undiagnosed. People didn't understand it as much. It's now we've got the media, people are starting to say, well, actually, that sounds like me. So it's a case of things weren't diagnosed because people didn't understand themselves enough to go and put themselves through for a diagnosis. So that's number one. Number two, ADHD happens because our brains are developing in a state of fight or flight. Gabor Mate talks a lot about this. He's got a great book called Scattered Minds. So if we look at how children were raised, if we go back, say, to my grandparents' generation, so after the First World War, generally women weren't working. So you had a big community of women who weren't working, who were raising the kids together. Since then, we've got men and women working, we've had stranger danger, we've had all of this stuff which has always been going on, like leave kids to cry it out and all this stuff. So you've got two parents who are severely stressed, who aren't able to be present physically and emotionally raising children. So you've got a lot of children who are growing up without the right conditions, which can cause them to grow up in a state of fight or flight. If we've got stressed parents, the kids are going to feel stressed. And the thing with ADHD is it's usually sensitive people who have ADHD. So it's usually you've got a child who's sensitive to their parents. The parents are in fight or flight, then they go into fight or flight, or maybe there's abuse or something or addiction going on because parents are stressed, and then they're growing up with this anxious brain, and then that presents as ADHD later on. So I also think there's been a lot of sociological things input. So yeah, it's a massive grey area, guys, and nobody fully knows themselves. So, but that's just a bit of what the evidence is saying. Psychedelic, my dad is a narcissist. Because of this, I'm emotionally damaged, don't have contact with him. That makes 100%. 100% explains why the mental health disorders are triggered, addiction, etc. Yeah, it's really hard. And I think exactly what Psychedelic has said, if somebody, whether they're a narcissist or not, if somebody is treating us in a way which is which is damaging our peace, damaging our self-esteem, is ruining the quality of life, that is not somebody that we owe being around. We can love someone from afar, and we can forgive someone or accept someone from afar. And to be honest, we don't even need to do any of them two things. We need to love ourselves and protect ourselves. And I think it's really hard to walk away from a relationship, whether that's, you know, a long-term partner, a parent, a sibling, a long-term friend. But ultimately, if somebody is disrespecting us, crossing boundaries, abusing us, hurting us, that is not